So question 2 is around designated schools. The parents and carers are advising it's getting too hard to enrol in Victorian government schools of choice. Of choice, quite interesting. Schools will be getting frustrated with the additional workload this creates for them too, because obviously, you know, parents have the right to appeal to the regional director, that creates headaches for our leaders, and we don't want them getting frustrated with parents before they even get into the school. So the question is, should the Victorian government review the department designated school zone policy? And I'm going to, Andrew, I'm throwing to you on this one first too, sorry.
Yes. Look, and I say that with a so as a little bit more background. Yes, we talk about parental choice, and it's critical. It's part of what our education system is about. From the departmental's perspective, it's trying to ensure that there are appropriate resources available for each schools. But parents still need to have that choice. You know, I'm not sure what level of engagement occurred with parents before these were adjusted. Probably not as much as we would have liked, even with the associations. But it puts the school in an invidious position. Parents come and say, I really would like to enrol my child at your school. And we have to say, unfortunately, you're outside of the catchment zone. Therefore, we can't accept an enrolment. And if you like, there's a process you can appeal it. The challenge that sits there is we do talk around every school is a great school in state education, yes. However, some face challenges and some face significant challenges. Part of that is around ensuring that parents have an absolute confidence and trust and belief that that school is delivering for every child that goes there. Now, we know that that's not the case. I suppose my challenge to government or to the department is how do you support those schools in rebuilding that trust if it's been lost, or ensuring that the community understands what is going on within that school. So there's a real challenge from the department's perspective about how do they balance this out when the policy clearly states that parent choice is there. Again, principals are the ones that have been squeezed in the middle to say, no, you can't enrol your child there unless we have capacity. And they talk about built capacity as part of that. There's a piece in the Age today I noticed around, I think it might be Target P9, they've got 61 portables on site. And it's trying to get that balance. Now that argument's a little bit different because it's around building a school, permanent facilities to suit the longer term enrolment. But the department's also trying to manage the relocatables that are on schools where there are other schools nearby that parents should be, or they would like to think that parents will comfortably and happily be sending their child to.
Did you want to make a comment on the restrictive sort of, the further layer of restriction that the department's on particular schools? This is
So a number of schools have received enrolment management plans where it's very, very clear that they can only go to a certain amount or a certain enrolment. Now those layers of pressure come on around priorities for attendance, including even if you're at the level, there is an expectation that you can't accept siblings. So you may have a child in grade 5 and a prep child coming through. Technically, principals are to say, well, actually, no, you need to send that child to the nearest school again. Not too many of us will play that game. We'll go, actually, we'll take the heat from the department because we want that connection and comfort of parents coming in. They've seen their other children come through. There's some real pressures around it from a principal's perspective in being able to manage it and having certainty of enrolment and so on as they go through into their budgeting processes.
The reason I wanted to tease that out a bit more is a lot of parents aren't aware about what sits behind these policies and what the pressures are being put on principals, which also adds that further layer of tension in the relationship between parents trying to enrol in particular schools. And I also further understand that some of the circumferences of those zones are shrinking, and I believe from the principals I've spoken to, they've got some other sort of theories. I understand some principals have stood up to the department and said, no, this is just not happening, rip that up. Some principals don't feel they're in a position to do that, but some of our field principals probably a bit fearful to do that. So again, this is where, like school funding, parents, we need to road instruct in our roadwork section this afternoon, is this something, and this is why one of the questions I have, Any other insights about the?
Sorry, the other layer of complexity that sits there just before is that funding through our schools is based on enrolment numbers.
Yes.
So that's the added complexity that sits there as well. So if I have 50 preps coming in each year and I have 70 grade 6 students going out, then my funding is going to be decreasing. So my capacity for staffing, facilities, programs and so on will adjust accordingly. So that's why there's that added complexity that sits there.
And so, again, there's the panel that's really interesting around the whole choice argument, or even just supporting local kids in the local community. Because how on earth is a family to navigate sending kids to a number of schools when that's their neighbourhood school? It just doesn't. It just seems sense.
I think one side of the road or the other. Sorry.
Yes.
No, you're right. I think part of the other issue is that if we've got students that are going to other areas, then attendance becomes a problem. Like they're not getting on the train or the bus, or maybe they're living in a different town, and that becomes really problematic as well. And so then we've got the issue with attendance, and then they're not connected with their peers, and they're staying at home and they're feeling isolated. Their mental health is declining. So relationships is like the relationships are declining.
Can I throw something in?
Yeah,
Sorry,
sure.
Karen.
No,
Actually, I won't comment on this one. That's right. Okay.
Look, I think it's a really challenging space. I won't talk about the sibling one because that's, a pretty obvious one really for parents. You'd like your kids to go, in most cases, to the same schools for a whole raft of reasons. But the broader issue around, we've seen in the Age today the problems Anne-Marie's having, but there's been some highlighted cases over the last 6 or 12 months as well in the media. There is a balancing act here around, and it is one of the difficulties around choice, really. That's a word that's used pretty loosely and frequently, but for many, many families, there is no choice. There just isn't. And so we have to remember we are part of a system, and there are limited resources in that system. So if we accept that it's okay because a school, for whatever reason, has managed to attract a whole lot of kids to go over there, but we absolutely need to have a local public school to cater for our local kids in this particular community. Do we accept that we should just take all the resources and move them over there? Because what does that mean for the education of those kids in that particular area? So there is a real challenging balancing act here. Yes. I'm just talking about public system. Because the reality is we know that there are schools in our system that are highly desired by parents, and that parents will make decisions to buy houses in those areas to get into those schools. All of those things float around in the system. Our view is that and it's probably to some degree an idealistic view, sadly, that every community within reason should have a strong, properly resourced public school that is available to their local community, that kids can go to their local community, because there's all sorts of reasons why you don't want kids and families spending big chunks of their days traversing across, I'll just use Metro Melbourne as an example, because that's where it probably mostly happens, traversing across our city to go to a school that they want to go to. There's all sorts of negative impacts of that. There's really important reasons why we want our schools to be a key part of their local community. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in, because I think we've supported aspects of this zoning policy, because I think it is centred around having good, high quality, well-resourced schools in our local communities that students and families can attend with confidence. That's what we want in our system. I think there are some real issues we have to confront if we just accept that this is all about choice and people can just go wherever they are, because that has many negative impacts on our families, on our kids and on our public schools.
Thanks, Meredith. Yeah.
So this might work great for Melbourne area, but totally different for country.
Yeah, Mark can comment on this. I think it is a bit it is a bit different. Like I grew up in a small country town, and you know, our school was a really important, and still is, a really important part of that community. But the reality is, in my local country town, when I went to school, we had 500 kids. I think my local high school now has barely over 200, because people are busing their kids half an hour away to a slightly bigger regional town for a whole range of reasons. And I think that's really sad. It's made a real impact on my country, my hometown, because we've got local kids who aren't connecting with other local kids in the same way that I had an opportunity to mix with all the kids in my community, because big chunks of our local population are heading off to other towns.
Where we're from, we have Lafra and then we have Sale, that's like, 15 minutes away. So we have a bus where, we share kids. So we might not have subjects at our school, so our kids go to their school, their kids come over to our school, and it works really, really well.
Yeah.
But still in a small country town, we have 2 registered charity schools in Sale, where we have a lot of kids who travel over to those registered charity schools. So, but that's their choice where they send their children. So, but between the public school system, it works perfectly well between Sale and Lafra. So I don't really think that will work too well where we're from. Yeah.
Mark, did you want to add any more to that?
No, I mean, we agree in the majority of rural areas. Why the bus issue is actually
But it does apply with the non-government and the government.
correct.
Oh,
So
yeah,
where-
that's where we've got big issues.
it's the buses and,
Yeah.
and where they go into town, whether they're free or not free, between non-government. So that's probably more the issue than saying.
Yeah. But I think it's important for people in the room to hear that, because Parents Victoria, when we, pre-COVID, when we were out doing more school visits and things, I remember visiting a declining enrolled secondary college, and the issue was there was a change of the publican at the local pub, supported the Catholic sector, and that's nothing against our colleagues in the room that have got children in the Catholic sector. That was a big regional Catholic college, and they were busing the children for free. And of course, parents were like, oh my God, this is great. And so what happened to the local public school? That is not good for the other kids in that lead and for the community.
And I will just say, having worked in a regional centre and having been at a school of choice, for the small school who drops from 200 to 80,
Yeah.
my bugbear with our system, no one's going in having a conversation about the links with that school, the community, the culture of the school. They're still focusing on that bland attendance things. Focus on, is there anything we can do here? Because we used to say, often takes 7 years, you've got to start with those preps.
Yeah.
By the time they finish year 6, hopefully you've changed the culture
Yeah.
of the school, and people will come. People want a good quality public school in the area, but they'll also follow.
Yeah.
They'll just go with word of mouth. So I think, going over what Meredith said, I think there's a lot more the system can do, and working with the school together to say how can we change the public perception that seems to have come about.
But I also think too, parents play a role in that too, because if we are going with the masses, what are we basing our decisions to do that on? Hearsay or the word of others? Or should we be talking to our wonderful education colleagues to say, why should we stay?
Yeah.
So these are sort of really interesting conversations, and I think this is where stakeholders play a collective role in amplifying the power of public education.